Namaste and Vanakkam to all. We are ready to begin the most awaited session of the Auroville Literature Festival 2025 on Conscious Capitalism. Let me introduce to you our special speaker, guest of honor, Shri Shridhar Vembu Ji. Shridhar Vembu Ji is the OG of Conscious Capitalism, building impact before it was trendy. He founded Zoho by choosing values over hype and sustainability over shortcuts. While others chased VC money, he invested in people, rural India, and long-term thinking. His work proves profit and purpose don't have to be enemies, exactly what Sri Aurobindo said about money and prosperity. Today, we hear from someone who's quietly redefining how capitalism should work. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are very privileged and very honored to have Shridhar Vembu here with us. And he does not need any introduction, so I am not going to waste the time in doing the introduction. We'll straight away get into the session. Okay. And looking back at your formative ages, can you tell us what were the incidents, events, people who actually set you on this career of vision, rather than moving in the path of convention?
So I was born in Thanjavur district, which is not very far from here. I think we can reach my village from here about 2.5 hours. The roads have gotten better now. In fact, I'm going to go there tonight and then go to Tenkasi. So my childhood was dominated by both the village and I grew up in Chennai, but in a very humble middle class home. But I was, in many ways, the thoughts were dominated by the pervasive poverty around that you cannot escape, right, in the village or even in the city. And I was a good student, school, all of that, and then I went to IIT Madras. And in my village, one of the ladies, my youth, she would tell me in my street, she lived, old lady, and I actually got a state rank in 10th standard, and then she called me and said, well, nobody in our places do all these. You are gifted, but you have a duty here. Don't forget this place. Wherever you go, you have to come back here. She told me. This at a very young age, maybe when I was 15. So that was one deep memory. She said, people leave and don't come back. And that's our problem. We don't have an economic sustenance. Even the 1 or 2 talent we produce will not stay here. That left actually a very deep imprint. Because I noticed the same phenomenon in IIT, right? Essentially, my entire class, everyone went abroad. So India produced the talent, but it wasn't much helping India. That was clear by then. And so that was one imprint. I also had my search for answers. I studied Japan intensely. It's very interesting because the first non-Western country, if you look back in the 80s, the only non-Western country that would be considered developed would be Japan, right at that time. It is only a different country. It's an Asian country. There is in many ways we share a similar civilizational roots, and of course they took a lot from China and from India, all of that then. And if you look at the Shinto, all of that, it's very much similar to our own rural religions. You can go to rural Japan, you'll find temples exactly like what we find right here, as an example. So, and it was also considered an overpopulated country. If you go back in 1910, 1920, they would have considered Japan very overpopulated. It's a very small country for what now would not be considered a large population, but then would have been considered a large population. Because once you become rich, nobody says you are overpopulated, right? So, how did this country make it? No natural resources. And so I had intensely studied it. And that was my entry into business. Really, I decided that you have to build technology and all of that. But I also remembered the rural roots. So these were the formative influences. Then I had studied Singapore. Though I am not a very urban person, but Singapore is a very good example because a very multi-racial, multi-religious, multi-ethnic society. In 1960s, Singapore was considered a lost cause. There were communal riots. Singapore was burning, slums. It was worse than where Chennai would have been in many ways, in some respects. And yet, this one man's vision, Lee, it's now considered one of the richest countries in the world. Right? It's a city-state. So how could you do this in a couple of generations, right? And so, which means it's possible. To me, in mathematics, they call it an existence proof, right? That it must be possible to do it. In fact, yesterday, I sent it to my senior managers a note. The Chinese have built now the EUV machines. The latest iPhone chips, all of the chips are made by these extreme ultraviolet lithography machines that only one company in the world makes, that is ASML in Netherlands. And each machine is about $150 million. If I pay them $150 million, they would not sell it to us. These are under heavily restricted category of technology. They won't sell it to us. They won't sell it to Chinese. Chinese have invented it now. Chinese are almost there. They are very close to this. And the founder of this company periodically stressed, this was not invented by God, it's invented by some other men, so we should be able to invent it. And I remember using the exact same lines 20 years ago, that same thing. I would say, whatever it is, we must be able to invent. We must be able to do. We must try. So that was these are all the sort of the formative influences. But then the other influence, see, I come from a very Advaitic background, same as Sri Aurobindo, and all of it is linked, right? Why are we here? These questions also dominate. In fact, the more money we make, the less interested I became in money. I cannot motivate myself with only money, because it makes no difference, none, right? And then why? Why is money then? Then you realize then you have to, I don't need money, but all our villages, everything needs more. And Swami Vivekananda said this best. You will not go and preach contentment to a very poor man. So I never preach contentment to a poor when I'm in rural India. I only preach contentment to the rich. People like me should be contented, but the people who are very poor should not be contented. They should strive harder. So those are all the roots. So everything has a place, right? And one of my mentors told me, all of the greatness and all of the evil is inside each of us. I think that's the fundamental idea. So which means we are capable of both extraordinary greatness and extraordinary evil. We have to realize that first.
I happened to see one of your earlier interviews in which your hair was more darker and you were wearing a t-shirt. It was an entirely different persona, and you were talking to an American, I believe, an American TV anchor. And you talked about investing in people, young students, what you just now said. But you said it in a very different way. You said that I chose the young, poor students. I gave them this software. And then they started producing this wealth for the company as well as the people. Yeah. So you actually moved away from the conventional path. You were not recruiting from IITs. You were not recruiting from the top class the recruitment sources. But you are taking from the ground zero. What exactly is that event that made you do this?
It's actually another observation. See, I went to IIT, I went to Princeton. So you can say I had an extremely privileged education in many ways, right? IIT Madras, Princeton. The government had invested extraordinary money in us. But even during my later time in IIT, I realized by third or fourth year, all this money the government is spending on us, and it's not going to help our country. It was clear. I used to say it. That's, most of us are leaving. What good is it? The poor person pays taxes and we are getting the education. In fact, I advocated at the time, I wrote a report saying maybe the government should just privatize and get away with it, so that at least the government doesn't have to fund it. Let people fund it themselves. That was my thought then, because it's not going to yield any returns to India per se, right? And there is also the other, see, I come from a village, so I know 90%, 95% of kids born there will never get an opportunity to go to IIT. Never. That's not possible, right? But there's a lot of talent. And again, my study of Japan, I intensely studied Japan. About 7 years, the way I do it, any subject I get into, semiconductor or whatever, I first order every book conceivable. I'll keep, I'll spend a lot of time in it, immersed in it. It's like immersion. Then you live it, and then slowly you become one with it. So over last 5 years it has been compilers, an obscure topic, but I've been living compilers. So similarly now I'm going into advanced manufacturing, like that. But that experience, so what was true in Japan is they had an idea that it does not matter what leading companies there, the best companies that we admire, do not hire a mechanical engineer, do not hire a chemical engineer. They hire somebody and then they train them in it. This was always true in Japan. Their colleges were never considered that way. So you don't have the real equivalent of an MIT or Stanford in Japan. You have some they would consider good, but that's not, the world leagues will not say Japanese institutions are the best in the world. Yet they produced best technology. That's possible because they did everything on the job. So that notion was there. So we realized, and to this day we are seeing it. The team that builds compilers for me, very advanced technology in software, and it's a very difficult work. Nobody has a computer science degree. Nobody knows formal computer science, but they learned themselves on the job. So it's possible.
I just want to again deeply appreciate your presence here, Shridhar Ji, and a lot of us here may not know that Auroville, about 4 years back, we approached Zoho to help us in finalizing and getting a centralized accounting system, and then much later our decision in some way, we got a seal of endorsement when Government of India also said, of course at that time the motive was not only Swadeshi, but we did feel that something like this which is right here, we must, and we are so happy. We have Margarita, Chandresh, and all our people who've been using it, and I think we are
Thank you for using our software.
We are extremely happy with the quality of it, and Government of India also, I must acknowledge our Minister, Honorable Dharmendra Pradhan Sahab, for trusting it and giving it, and of course our governing board members. But now, question is, this is a city founded based on the teachings of, or the direct action of Sri Aurobindo, which you did mention. I mean, there's all a great deal of alignment. Mother founded it. And very uniquely, this has a signature. This city is known as a city of unending education. Sometimes we have a problem. Ministry of Education asks us for proof that we are an institute of education. I mean, it's ironical, but we are an institute of lifelong education, right from womb all the way. That's what it was meant to be. In that context, I do have heard you, Shridhar, talk about your criticism of this simple rote learning, memorizing, and the quality, mere superficial credentials not being useful. And of course, the NEP is a breath of fresh air in this direction. But what do you think could be practical insights, since you have gone through all of it, the village, IIT, and then studied Japan, gone to the US, made a fortune, come back. What are the practical things that we in this sandbox called Auroville as well could implement? What are your practical suggestions, please?
I don't look at our company as separate or distinct from the broader society around us. I try to make it as organically rooted as possible. And to me, it has to blend in with that whole thing. That's very important. And which means that, see, part of, if I actually used to say, if you are really advanced and we are technologically advanced society, I may not be doing this work then. I may be doing mathematics or something. It's not because money doesn't motivate me. Then if I'm not needed, I wouldn't be doing it. That's how I say it. But right now, what is the context here? I mean, we are Auroville, surrounding Viluppuram district, Kadalur district, all of that. There is clearly a lot of economic distress. In fact, if anything, I am well aware now with the technological age, the inequality has actually grown. It has not shrunk. And the gap between the haves and the have-nots has increased further. In fact, just yesterday I mentioned in Delhi this. When I was a kid, kids from even a humble middle-class background will go to a Tamil medium school, right? Today, nobody does. Only the bottom 50%, 60% who cannot afford go to Tamil medium school. This has created a large gap, even bigger gap. even our own kids now are disconnected from our own broad mass of people, our own culture broader. This is amazing because, you would think, 75 years after independence, we would get closer to our roots, but in some ways, the way we are bringing up kids are pushing further away from roots today. And that's what actually one of the reasons that made me come back was that. How do we address this? And how do we create a technological society? That's important because, we are all, everything is surrounded by technology. We are completely immersed in technology today. But make it work for us. Make it something, a tool, rather than we be slaves to it. It's meaningless to say I don't want technology. Smartphone is very useful. All of the technologies are useful. I go and research, I go to LLMs and ask some questions, it's useful. I learn. It's a very good learning tool, all of that. Entertainment tool. Go to YouTube, listen to a song, right? That's all good. But it also today, I want to point out the economic implication of it. Today, the larger the 4 or 5 big tech, their annual profits are vastly bigger than most countries. Annual profits, not just revenue. And their market capitalization of the top 4 or 5 is bigger than India's GDP now. That's about 4 trillion. Google, Microsoft, all of them. That's what is, and the gap is actually widening. There's only a few can master these technologies today. This puts a very urgent, it's not merely a technology question, it's an economic, social, political, and spiritual, all of it, all of these questions, because we are going to reduce a vast mass of people to mere supplicants, waiting for freebies. Because the way rural accounts are balanced today, you migrate to cities, you see the heavy migration, you borrow, you sell off your remaining land, and expect freebies, either direct freebies from government or political pay during elections. Most elections are now won by paying actual money. In my village, it's true. It's an open secret. You ask anybody in my village who votes, they'll say we took money from this party, that party, every party is doing it. This is a direct consequence. I'm not even blaming the politics because there is a social, pressing economic need. Like you get a school teacher who will struggle to make 10,000 rupees a month in a village. While if you are in the right technology in India, in AI, you can make few crores a year easily. Easily. No. And this has to be addressed. There is a serious problem. And this is not about ism, socialism, all of that. This is about we have to, humanism maybe. That's the right word here, right? How do we solve these problems? So I say to the smartest of our people, I say, we will live well, but we also have a duty to the broader society around. How do we integrate this? How do we create this? To me, that's the core of what capitalism ought to be. Capitalism, I see it not as money terms, as capital. In the sense we build capabilities, we build infrastructure for good living. So that's capitalism, right? How do we build this? And how do we do it? For example, how do we restore our ponds, our nature? In fact, Auroville has helped us build a nice forest in our Chennai campus, about 5-6 acres. From the 27 acres, we dedicated about 5 acres to a forest and another about 1.5-2 acres to a pond. And all of the native trees, I'm very happy to report what we started in 2014-15. If you come there now, you will see it's really a dense forest now. It's amazing. So, and all native species, all that. So that kind of thing that is needed. So we have to integrate. So we are actually, lot of my weekend work in village is all that, digging ponds, water retention, forestry, agroforestry, all of those. Because even when we are saturated with technology, we have to connect with our roots. And roots meaning really, biological roots, nature. And to me, a lot of the misery of modern life is also that we are disconnected. We're disconnected from our own fellow citizen, disconnected from nature. So these, I believe, again, I'd say, only this nation can show the path to the world. This I lived 30 years in America. But I slowly appreciated India more after that experience, so I should say.
In a way, you have preempted one of my questions. I wanted to ask you that question that you have been popularizing this term, Dharmic capitalism. It sounded like oxymoron, because capitalism is always associated with the profit seeking and destruction of the natural resources and things. And dharma is something that sustains everything. So how you have actually combined these terms, I wanted to ask you that question, and you have preempted that, but still I will ask that question in a detailed way. When we talk about dharmic capitalism, also should we talk about dharmic technology and kind of a dharmic structure for the...
So let me say this way. So if you look at our roots, we always had merchants. There is a merchant dharma, Vaishya dharma we call it. And Western capitalism has become the Vaishya dharma minus the dharma. Right? You need profit, obviously, to invest, to create new things. But what is the purpose of that profit, right? That's where the dharma, that purpose is coming from dharma, the notion of doing some good with it. So the Vaishya dharma minus the dharma, that's what, and for that is the disconnect. Once you take out the dharma from it, similarly, what is Geneva Convention? That's actually, you can call it warrior dharma, right? Kshatriya dharma, right? Even in war, there is dharma. How do you fight? That's why Geneva Convention, but we always had a Geneva Convention for thousands of years. From Mahabharata to all of that, there is a dharma to war. There is the right way to fight war, all of that, right? It's the same thing in everything. And similarly, there is a medical dharma. See, a doctor, when we go and get admitted, we are under complete control of the doctor. They could do anything to us, right? But clearly there's a dharma, there's a code. Do no harm, right? That's dharma. What else? Where else does it come from? It's not, in fact, in modern hospitals, when they say they are only doing it for money, we don't like it, right? Same thing with teaching. There is a teacher dharma, there is a guru. In fact, our notion of guru is they are not supposed to ask for money at all. You give dakshina. Whatever is voluntarily offered, they accept without question. That is our dharma again. Because teacher is so exalted a position, you don't want to. So as a merchant, I can ask for money. That's a merchant dharma. But a teacher cannot. These notions are there. And I'm telling you, these are more relevant than ever. These are not some outdated notion of a primitive culture. These are relevant today. And the world can only find answers if we go back to these. It's not in the political realm. It's not in the purely technology. We have to go back to these notions.
So what about, if we are talking about a technology, a dharmic technology, how would you define a dharmic technology?
So people entrust their data with us. What do we do with it, right? Unfortunately today, if you look at the big tech, all manner of privacy violation. They are extracting this for showing ads, and just yesterday, the state of Texas sued 5 leading television makers because they are taking screenshots or pictures of whatever we are watching. They're sending it, phoning home every second or so to show better ads, to know what we are watching, what ads are showing, what ads we are watching, what we are pausing, all of that information. It's distasteful, right? And this is why the privacy laws, all that come. But it's not only about laws. There has to be a code that we have inside, and the laws complement it. Without that foundation of code, what is right, wrong, there is no laws that can ever help us, right? And so this is important. So to me, the dharma of technology is what are we going to use it for? And if I give you a phone, is it going to spy on you every second? Because it's with you all the time. In fact, I used to joke in one of the interviews in the US, I said, first of all, let's realize that when you have your phone in your pocket, it knows everything you're doing, really. Who you are calling, when you are calling, how long do you talk. I used to joke, whether you have a secret lover, how often you talk to your secret lover, your phone knows. What the phone maker does with the knowledge is separate, but your phone knows all of it, I used to say. And that is inevitable. We are entrusting technology with all this. It's just like entrusting a doctor with our lives. Is it put to good use? That is the dharma of technology. There is a whole materialistic paradigm where none of that matters. We have technology, we'll do whatever we want with it. Clearly that is going wrong. Clearly that's not going to work. We are seeing that the whole worldwide privacy, all of that is coming from that. Hey, this is simply wrong, don't do it. That's why Texas, which is not considered a very highly regulated state. Normally they'll leave it free. They are suing these TV makers because they don't like what is being done. No?
So there's another thing. I mean, we wanted to know, how is it that your own personal life or personal rather practices in terms of your ethical, what is it? Because there is somewhere we hear that there is an ecosystem. For example, you were in the US for 15 years and sometimes 30 years. So what happens is sometimes that ecosystem, it's like the tail wagging the head. It gets you to get conformed to a certain way of living, certain practices, certain consumptions, and then that's it. It's a vicious circle. But for somebody to be aware of it, and I sometimes coin this term, the poverty of prosperity, and the reverse, the prosperity of poverty, but sometimes to be able to extricate yourself from the clutches, grips of that, and yet come back and be able to do it. So what do you think are those difficult choices you've had to make? I'm sure you had an ecosystem of friends and others, certain lifestyle, but then you had to take a call that, no, I'm going to choose this, come to Tenkasi or whatever. So what were those defining moments of truth in your life that made you choose what is it that your heart really wanted you to do?
Yeah. It also goes back to how I grew up, right? And how my parents were, all of that. And I never really developed any taste for money. I mean, as a student, I still pretty much live like a graduate student in Princeton or something. My tastes have not changed at all in 40 years, whatever. And I'll enjoy a filter coffee. And that's right. That's my particular, if you grew up in Kumbakonam area, you know what it does to you. So like that. But that you are, and also there is a notion particularly in our civilization, rooted in our thing, that you accept voluntary poverty at some age, right? That's there. And the Jain monks do it. It's not just Hindu. The Jains do it. Buddha advocated it. Why would they do this? Why? Why would you accept voluntary poverty? Nobody can force it on you, by the way. This is not by law, people should do it. That's not the idea here. Why would people do this? You realize that there's a point, this is not interesting. How many cars should you own? I'm not interested in it. That is where it comes from. So it's not about what my friends have. In fact, in the US, I remember, I would own a nice Toyota Camry. It's a beautiful car. I have no issue with it. My friend will show me their BMW, their Benz, their Ferrari. They'll take me on a ride. They'll ask me, oh, you can afford it, why don't you buy it? Hey, I really enjoy the car, it's a nice car. But you're saying, why don't you buy it? I also don't have any desire to own it. Right? It's in a different sense, I'll give you an idea. Steve Jobs, this actually comes from Steve Jobs. He asked once a very good gay friend, what happens to you when you see a beautiful woman? He asked, because he was curious. What happens inside you, man? I cannot understand it. This friend said, it's exactly like how you see a beautiful horse, Steve. What happens to you? You enjoy the beauty. You say that's beautiful, right? It's exactly what happens to me, he said. Steve Jobs quotes it in his book. It's similar. I can clearly see the BMW is a very nice car. And Benz, it drives beautifully, right? But I also have no desire to own it, that I have to have it. If somebody gives me a ride, I'm happy to take it and enjoy it. That's it. So that is the attitude. This is the attitude in what we say, right? You are like the water on the lotus leaf. You are enjoying it, but you are not attached to it, right? The water is like going around. That is the attitude I want to cultivate. It has been there somehow inside, but as I get older, the attitude becomes more. Then you are not afraid of anything. Steve Jobs again said this. He's a yogi in a way, right? He said, what are you afraid of? You are already dead. Anyway, you are going to die. He said the thought that we are anyway going to die is a very liberating thought because it's all gone anyway. So what are you so afraid of anything, right? That's actually a very good, in Buddhism they always say, every day think of your death. Then you will remove all your fear, all the attachments, all of that. It's the same thing here. So that's what I don't, in other words, if somebody gives me a nice ride or a nice espresso or something, I can enjoy it. But I don't have a desire to own a $50,000 espresso machine also. That's how I'll put it. Thank you.
When I saw that Tenkasi experiment that, or not exactly experiment, the Tenkasi transformation that you have been doing, there is this thought that came to me. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was our president, he used to envision something called Pura, providing urban facilities in rural areas. And he always wanted to do that with the digital connectivity, everything. He tried in a couple of places also, but it couldn't be sustained actually. But now you have accomplished it. You have made the boys and girls of the villages come together and to do wonderful things. How it was possible for you? How you made this? Because there is a lot of bureaucratic hurdles, there is a lot of local community-based hurdles, gender problems. How you achieved all this?
Actually, by now, you can sit anywhere in a small town in India and write code. See, the one thing about our job, writing code, nobody knows what we do. So you're sitting in front of a computer and coding all day, right? So it requires minimal infrastructure. You need internet connection, 4G, 5G will do. And you need a computer which is there and widely available. So there were actually no big hurdles. In fact, in Tenkasi town, there's a Kasi Vishwanathar temple there, right? Tenkasi, so Dakshin Kasi. And right next to it, we rented a building. It's about 12, 13 years ago. And even the building owner didn't know why we want to rent. We paid him, he asked for, I remember, 12 rupees a month rent. He thought he's hitting a jackpot. Somebody is coming and willing to pay him 12 rupees a month per square foot rent. We paid it. We paid what we asked. Whereas Chennai, the rent would be 40 rupees. So in Tenkasi, it's only 12 rupees, right? We paid it. And we had 10, 15 people writing code. And a lot of times people will be curious, what it is that these guys do, right? And sitting writing code. So that, there wasn't no hurdle, I should say. And the local people were very friendly, right? And then we train more and take more jobs. So now we are well known there around. The community knows Zoho, everyone knows. But even when we were not known, it was only curiosity. There was no trouble. And I think it's true everywhere in India, right? And second one, what is different about it? We cannot serve rural areas without first an economic engine. In fact, I jokingly say Zoho is like sort of a money printer in the basement for Tenkasi. You need that money printer in the basement to do, right? In other words, we are using our brain power to build products that brings us money everywhere, worldwide, and that gets local communities. And this helps balance the economy. To understand it, see, I am a kind of a part-time economist too. Today, every rural district, including Viluppuram here, you can buy everything now. You can buy smartphones, you can buy anything, right? It's easy to buy. You don't have anything to sell other than maybe rice paddy or some commodities. And that's a fundamental imbalance today. And in fact, the way the world economy is moving, more and more the production is more concentrated. Technology is even more true. And the consumption is, of course, worldwide. So it's naturally built-in asymmetry, imbalance. It is that imbalance that's reflecting in cities, it's reflecting all of that. It's an imbalance in our body, economic body, so to speak. We have to address this imbalance. So that's why I said we have to go build some money printer in the basement in order to serve here. So that is software for us. And now we are going into other technologies. But I always say, well, that money printer comes from our brain really in the end. So we have to apply our brain and build the money printer in order to serve. So it cannot purely be philanthropic. It has to be combined with, if you are going to buy something, what are we going to sell? And we have to figure out the answer to that. And I have taught people from the beginning. I go places, I say, Odisha, they produce a lot of minerals. In fact, 25% of steel production in India is there. I say you can value addition. The whole specialty alloys, from dental instruments to all of it, those are all high value products. Figuring those out is engineering jobs, metallurgy jobs. And the electrical engineers who run all the sensors in those modern furnaces, those jobs. That, in other words, we are buying all that. We go to a dentist, right? All of us go to dentists now. And all of that. And that also is important for defense. You talk about fighter jets. They need advanced alloys, metallurgy. And I said, Odisha is perfectly positioned because you have the raw material. The remaining part we have to figure out is apply the brain power to figure this out. Then that becomes in the money printer in the basement for Odisha. So every place has to figure this out. And that is, so this is the connection between the production and consumption. That's what I'm trying to create.
Point of all of us not just being consumers but also contributors, if that can be inculcated from a young age, I think a practical tip again, because there's so much possible even in a place like Auroville with 700 units. But I think as all of you, if there are questions you can get sort of ready, we'll come to that in a minute. But one more thing from my end, and possibly something that in this whole context of AI and also now quantum computing, so there is on the one hand, there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction, panic that is happening. But there's also sometimes a panic reaction and saying that let's bring in AI at every stage of education, perhaps from grade 1, etc. While that may be imperative, given the writing on the wall. But what is it that, the Dharmic, as you mentioned, the various dharmas, and in fact, Sri Aurobindo has talked of the Chaturvyuha Chatur Dharma. He says not only are these dharmas important, but each of us has to have all the 4 attributes. For example, he speaks of Sri Krishna and he says he also had, he was the one who gave the Bhagavad Gita, so he had dhyana, jnana, all of that, but he was also a warrior, but he was also an ace negotiator. He tried negotiating with Duryodhana. That he succeeded and didn't is a different issue. And he was also somebody who had the aspect of Mahasaraswati, as we call it, because he was tending to the horses. He was the Parthasarthi, very carefully, dressing the horses after they had the battle. So that is the kind of personality that Sri Aurobindo wants all of us, an integral personality where all these dimensions are there. But coming back in the context of AI, the onslaught, the writing on the wall, it can be a great boon. But what do you see, and what is it that we can do to brace ourselves to face this challenge?
First, I'll give you a very specific area where AI is probably having the most impact steadily, the whole field of software development. And for that, first you have to go back. Software itself is I call it a handicraft industry, a digital handicraft. We are hand weaving code together, either two. Until recently, all the code is hand woven together. You can think of it that way. Which is why small scale operations are viable, right? And the productivity in that is inherent in how much a single programmer can achieve in a day, 10 days, whatever. Now powerful machine looms have started emerging. That's what the LLMs are from a software development. In fact, the economic value for companies like Anthropic, even OpenAI, all of that, Anthropic is the leader in the software development area now. Even OpenAI is catching up, Gemini is catching up, all of them. Really in the code generation, software code. Those markets are already worth billions now. And they're growing at 100, 200% a year now. And the key question is, when this is something I posed to our own people about 3 years ago. They said, we can clearly see machine looms are coming. They may not be very good yet. They may not produce as good a quality as a hand craftsman today. But we have to assume, like whatever happened in textiles is going to happen to our industry. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, they could become very good. Then there's 2 things happen. See, all of us have closet crammed full of clothes now. But weavers also don't have jobs. So it's a case where there is no problem of, there's no shortage of clothes. But the productivity is so high. You go to Coimbatore, Tirupur, you go to the spinning mills, the weaving, there's hardly any people. You can see a 100,000 square feet factory, there may be 4 workers there. Only those Japanese machines, the German machines. So all of the value is shifted to the producer of the machines. Almost nothing go to the people who are working there anymore. And because there are so few anyway. This is the nature, and could this happen to software? All of the software, so much of the software is produced by AI. Then very few programmers are needed. Then what it does to jobs. In fact, I said this, even publicly, I said this 2 years ago to our Ashwini Vaishnavji, IT minister. I said, this threat is coming, would pose a serious threat to our own software jobs here. A lot of it. And I think since then, the software jobs have stopped growing. Even in Zoho, we are not hiring that many software engineers now. Because I'm even worried whether in 5 years, all of the current people can keep our jobs in this because of the AI wave. So the question then is, who makes those powerful looms and who controls those profit streams. Today, very few companies, only few companies, 3-4 companies in the world who can do this. And then the entire profit is going to go to them. So that is the reality today. Even for Zoho, this is an existential threat. So in fact, one of the reasons I'm now chief scientist is to figure out answers to it. We have to apply our brain power again. I'm happy to say we are achieving some high productivity ideas ourselves. In other words, we are building some version of our own looms. But still that will raise the question, if all the profit comes to just Zoho, it's like going to Google again, right? It's the same difference. Google or Zoho, what difference does it make? You still have an uncomfortable question. If so many software jobs are going to be lost and the profit is going to go to only a few companies, then again what it does to our broader society in India and around the world, right? Because yet more industry. People will say, oh, new things will come up. But I can tell you, last 30, 40, 50 years, we have seen, due to technology, progressively the imbalances increased further. The only nation that has fought into this and come to their own way of doing this is China, I have to say. And so we have a lot to learn from China. The only viable country with technology of its own in most areas is China today. And that, if we don't control the looms, the production technology, we cannot control where the money goes. We cannot control whether it goes to dig ponds or to buy private jets, you know. Both are, yeah, liquor. So it's the, right? So that means that we have to have some distributed control of these technologies, which means the brain power is there. But there is another barrier today. Even if we want to build the LLMs, the NVIDIA chips are both expensive, energy intensive, and they are under sanction category for India. So all of India can only get 50,000 chips per year. That's the quota for us. OpenAI alone will have more than 1 million chips. And Grok would have about 500,000. Elon Musk posted it in Twitter. I think 500,000 is going to 1 million chips. All of India only gets 50,000 chips. Even if we want to replicate the technology, we have the money, we have the energy, not easy. We cannot get the chips. And we don't build those chips, right? So all of these barriers, that means that the way it is heading, this asymmetries I talked about, the imbalances are going to further increase. So these are the challenges. I am right in the middle of this, you know, because it's coming right at software. Then by extension to a lot of other professions, like for example, we made recently an ad copy, video ad, AI. Some of our people, marketing people, did this in about 2-3 hours of work. And previously it would have taken a video shoot, people, actors and whatnot, voiceovers, all that. AI did all that. So again, those jobs, again, that income stream. In other words, we can produce all we want, but the income stream to earn the money to buy this is increasingly challenged. This leading thinkers are aware. Sam Altman, actually OpenAI CEO, his own stated, you know, it's their blog, you can go read this. He says we have to adopt universal basic income. What in India we call freebies. So it's now a very respectable idea in global economics. Universal basic income. Meaning, what Sam Altman says, companies like us will make extraordinary unlimited profits, take some of the profit and distribute free to people. That's what he's saying, effectively. So.
Well, of course, Aravindan Ji maybe, but then taking that forward, we also, I mean, this whole power loom and hand loom, power loom analogy was very powerful to say a metaphor of what is where we are heading. But there again, now there is in some ways a bit of a completion of the cycle in a sense coming back. We still again we're trying to have all these GI tags for exotic art forms, which is having some handicrafts and so on. But again, work, it's not just about, so going back to the philosophy, karma yoga, all of that, which is we're here really trying to synthesize the two. It's not just for income, like you said, it's not money alone that is something that you were enamored by. And for a lot of people, if you really look at your basic needs, money is there. But I think beyond that, work is also something that is therapeutic. To live, you have to have some work, their contribution. So there, how do we rejig this way of looking at these cycles? I mean, we're not just machines producing and incomes. So we have to break that cycle, that vicious way of thinking, and come to what could be answers for that?
I have spent some time thinking about it. So I can imagine a world where all our iPhones, all of our software, all of the technological goods are produced with almost no human effort, near zero. So we are not involved in the production of any of those. Those are pouring out of automated factories, which are, they call it lights out manufacturing. No, this, because they don't need lights because there are no humans. Only machines are doing the work in darkness, right? So this idea is now catching on. It's coming. It could be even coming to software where maybe 90% of the software engineers employed are not needed. Maybe 99%, we don't know where it's heading. I myself have experiments where I'm running, where I believe I can do it with one engineer what 10 engineers could do. I'm seeing it. Right there in Tenkasi, we are doing these experiments right now. So this means that what it means for employment, all of that in future. So what do humans do, right? It's not actually, this is not fundamentally if we can fix the economic distribution system, that means that all the goods are coming out of factories, then they can become very cheap. I'll give you an example. Recently, one of my school kids in my school, deeply, it's in a deeply poor region, right? This kid bought a very nice looking watch. I asked her, hey, where did you buy this watch? She said, sir, it's 150 rupees in Meesho. I said, I didn't know. Show me the watch. I want to go find it. Because I want to order 150 rupees. So basically, there is no watch economy now, right? I mean, there is expensive Swiss watches, but I'm saying you can buy a nice looking watch. It works for 150 rupees in Meesho today. And that basically means, and in a remote village too, right? So iPhone could be only 2,000 rupees. We are not going to complain, I tell you. If the price goes down that much, it's not like any of us are lamenting that watches have become so cheap. It's so bad, right? Anything, I mean, it's a natural course, right? Whether you choose to wear one or not is up to you, but it's going to be available cheap. The same with smartphones, all of it. Then what do humans do? That is the question. So in other words, if the automated system produces very low prices, that's not a problem. That itself is not a problem. We don't complain that watches have become very cheap and phones could become very cheap. But then the jobs question arises, who gets the income? How do we get the income? I believe we will see a structuring of the economy where all the things humans do to each other in genuine ways, that is teaching, all of that, nursing, they will be the well-paying jobs. The digital watchmaking is not a well-paying job. Well, there are no jobs there. It's a zero-paying job because there are no jobs. But school teachers will get paid well. This is where I say a Switzerland school teacher buys an iPhone in 2 days of work, 3 days of work. An Indian school teacher in Vilpuram will take 6 months of work to buy an iPhone. So there is no intrinsic reason why iPhone is available for only 2 days of work here also. So that's where then the remaining of us will actually be focused on kids, on nature. So I can imagine a soil expert. I can imagine tree expert, pond expert, water expert. These are all well-paying jobs. Whether it's only our lack of imagination, music, reviving music. Temple festivals could be very good jobs, right? We celebrate. So it is not, I'm a technologist, I'm addicted to, I'm working all the time. But I also don't think it's particularly a good way to live. In a parallel world, I wish I'm only going and singing and dancing in the streets too, In other words, if I didn't have to do it, if I had some other thing, I would also be doing it. So it's not, we can be happy, right? So which is why I think those Nadaswaram jobs, the Nadaswaram Vidwans in the temples, and all of these could become well-paying. Provided we fix the distribution system so that with 3 days of work, the school teacher could buy the iPhone. That's purely a distribution problem. That's not a technology problem. That's what I call the socio-economic political question. So there is such a thing called political economy in this. How this distribution system works. And this is actually, these answers are well known even in America. We have to prevent monopolies. We cannot allow companies to gain monopolies. That's very simple. Then competition will take care of how the prices get lowered, right? If I were the only monopoly, I can keep raising the price. You just have to pay up, right? If I have a lot of competition, I cannot raise the price. So that the technological fruits will go reach the consumer if there are no monopolies. Then humans, we can figure out how to keep ourselves busy. which is why actually part of my rural living also, rural areas can keep you very busy for a lot of times. You know, I have no dearth of temple festivals to attend, and no dearth of like local music, all of that. It's a good life, you know, and no dearth of ponds to enjoy, swim in the pond. Why not enjoy life like that? So we must accept that those human things we do are valuable, economically valuable. There's no intrinsic reason, as I said. Only, you know, an iPhone is worth 6 months of teacher pay or 3 days of teacher pay. Those are arbitrary units, conversion. I always say, the way I say it is, I am working in technology so that we can devalue technology in economic terms. I put it that way. Yeah.
That was a beautiful answer. Shall we open it up for this, Aravindan Ji, unless you want to ask? I'm tempted to say something, just if while any hands up there, then we can, we see a hand. Just give us maybe a minute. One thing I just wanted to compare, I remember going to meet one of this elderly perima of mine, which is like a mother's elder cousin sister once in Calcutta. And, they lived in a very simple house, although he retired as a very senior. So this whole thing of the Indian way of living, sometimes it's about, what do we call it, simple living, high thinking. She would begin her day by 5. She was all in her 80s, and do the kolam, do all of this. So there was a sense of satisfaction, there was a sense of meaning in her life. So maybe one of the things, because I'm also a bit of a die-hard optimist, you can't see something, absolutely, it's not a doomsday kind of approach. So maybe this is existence's way of flooding you with all that you need materially, and realize that, okay, that's not what you're clamoring for. There's something more beautiful to life. And that's what Mother also writes about in some ways in the Sunlit Path. That, this is from the Rig Veda, to say that, yes, you have an abundance of all this, but it's about consciously relishing it. The Isha Upanishad also says. So maybe that is where we're going, but there's also a bit of vulnerability. If you have all of this in the hands of something, and all said and done, we do have national securities, hacking, all of that. So are we also becoming super vulnerable is a thought, a little apprehension in my mind. And would you like to respond to it, or should we, please?
Yes, today technology is also getting weaponized. It happened actually in India, it happened recently, but Europe it happened, where American administration does not like some particular judge in the European Court of Justice. So they ordered Microsoft to stop the software for the ECJ, the European Court of Justice or whatever. So that, regardless of the merits, whether you agree with the judge or disagree with the judge, this is completely unwarranted intrusion. No? Stopping the software is a very bad thing to do. And that is why we need to build all this here. We cannot be held hostage by somebody else's idea of what is right or wrong. And it's not to say what we do is always right, but it is to say that we must retain that autonomy, independence. I mean, again, Sri Aurobindo lived that whole life of national independence, right? Today, independence means, technology independence, technology sovereignty. Without it, there is no independence. If we don't have technology, we'll be held hostage. It's not just national security, it's also sovereignty, what decisions we make. And those also, that's why it's important. Technology has become core to it. So again, I say I work in technology so that all of these matters can become irrelevant. It has to be diffused so that it can be irrelevant, then we can get on with our actual lives, right? Real life, as I call it.
We'll take some questions, so you can keep that.
Thank you.
Listen to you. It's really okay. Hello. Good evening. Am I audible? Yeah, your talk was really great. We had it wanted to see you for a long time, so thank you so much. You mentioned about the dharma part, that the Kshatriya dharma and Brahmana dharma and all that. But as per my understanding, that also keep evolving.
Yeah. Correct.
Based on that, you get your Swabhav, Swadharma.
Swadharma, yeah,
then,
that's important. Yeah.
Then Swantaya,
Swadharma.
Sukhaya, those kind of things happen. So, one, I wanted your view on that. Secondly, how much is money, how much is meaning? You know, like a person of your stature, you have come here now, do you think that there is a limit? How much money you should have and why? That is my second question.
Yeah.
And, you know, the third question will be, although it is just linked, all that thing. Maybe first you can give answer to these two questions, please. Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
I fully subscribe to the idea that we have to follow our Swadharma, and that could be changing with our stage of life too, which we are familiar with again, right? At an young age, you could have a very warrior spirit in you. Then maybe at an older age, you become a teacher. So, when you become a teacher, you practice that guru, that you accept a dakshina, right? And you maybe in between you might be a merchant. Then you practice the merchant dharma, right? So yes, totally I agree with it. These could stay with stages. But we have to be consciously aware of who am I right now? What is my objective? And you asked about, then that comes to the next question about money, how much money? Right now I see myself as an instrument for this society, this nation to figure out some problems in technology. Obviously I cannot figure out all our problems in technology, not even a small fraction, but we have numerous, hundreds of areas where today we are well behind the world. So, and that is directly a cause of our poverty. If we figured out some answers to these, we can raise the standard of living substantially, which we absolutely must do. It's so that's the kind of that's how I look at as my dharma right now. I don't need the money, but our society needs all of these technologies. They have to be figured out. Somebody has to organize the capital, organize the teams, give them the motivation to pursue these long term. See, part of the technologies today is it requires, the reason why few companies can do it is it takes extremely long term focus to get it done. To build even an operating system, a messaging software, any of these cannot be done in 1 or 2 years, no matter how good a team is. You have to have 10, 15, 20 years of strong focus. So that's part of the service I provide to this nation, I would say. To organize those teams and how to motivate them, how to inspire them, how to get this done. So that's, and then you need, of course, lots of money. If you are going to spend 10 years on a project without a return, it's going to cost maybe a few hundred crores, maybe 1,000 crores. Where do you get the money? So you have to marshal the profit from something, invest in something. Those are the things I'm doing right now. So, thank you.
Three more questions, short ones, only questions, no comments.
Well, good afternoon.
Raise your hand, please. Who is asking the question? Ah, okay. Sorry.
Good afternoon. I was so impressed the way you have connected capitalism with knowledge. You know, I actually look into that as metaphysical capitalism or knowledge capitalism. And if we look into our ancient scripture, we do have the notion of Devi in three, Varnan, Shakti Rupe, Lakshmi Rupe, and Vidya Rupe. So when we correlate that, the knowledge is a part of it, the power, the eternal power is a part of it, and the eternal wealth, which is actually real human capital, is a part of it. And that's why we also have Sattam, Shivam, and Sundaram. So this ancient concept, which has been destroyed completely by the colonial period and successive ideologies after that. Now, as a visionary thinker, how do you think you can re-inculcate that back into the younger generation? You also gave a comparison between China and India, or China and Bharat. China is, of course, an authoritarian regime with supreme nationalism or hyper-nationalism. They have the grand idea of the Middle Kingdom or the Heavenly Kingdom, and no compromise on that. Out here in Bharat, when our Honorable Prime Minister tries to celebrate even 150 years of Vande Mataram, there is so much of acrimony in it, So, how do you foresee these kind of things? Because both the countries are ancient civilization.
So first one, what can I do? Obviously the I don't think of all of India or something. Those are way above. Those magnitudes are so huge. I like to say maybe I can make an impact in one, maybe 2 districts. So I look at a Tenkasi like an Estonia. It's the same population, by the way, about 1.4 million. Can I make a difference in my lifetime? And maybe 2. Near Kumbakonam, we are doing this. So maybe 3. Then, I mean, we have a lot of smart people. They have to take it up. We are happy to share the lessons. But even this is work in progress. So that's why I don't want to say I have some answers to all of India. That I don't. That would be too arrogant to make any such claims. Now the second one, you said the China versus India. Chinese also have lost themselves in this whole extremely materialistic quest. And so they have figured out technology. See why? See, I only remember, I quoted China as an example of we can do this. It's an existence proof, mathematicians. It doesn't mean we must do it the same way. Right? The fact that they have done it, it can be done. We can figure this out. But we must do it our own way. We must be stayed rooted in our culture, our civilization, all of it. Without, this is actually no disrespect intended for China. I am not here to go and say, wow, they should conduct their country, all of that, right? But we know our reality here. What can we do here? On one level, see, I am critical of our society this way now. Our own elites, the English-speaking elites, have lost touch with our own non-English-speaking mass. The non-English-speaking is at least 90%. This must be addressed. This must be addressed for us to be truly a nation, right? And this is actually this. People immediately say that means that all of India should speak one language. No, each of our states is bigger than European countries, much bigger often in population. So we can actually conduct our affairs in Tamil here, and Kerala has more than people in South Korea to conduct its affairs in Malayalam, all of it. This is important. And we also must look at Sanskrit as a link because that's the root of a lot of this. Even in Tamil, 40% of the words are from Sanskrit. Nobody can contest it. If you look at across all our languages, learning it, some exposure to it. You don't have to speak it, but some exposure will make it easy to acquire others. So these are some of the priorities. Clearly, all of these are highly politically contentious. The moment I say it in public, somebody will attack me for a million things. But I don't care. I don't worry about it. To me, attack and praise are the same. I just take it each with a smile. But we must have these things, debates. The way I see it is we have been 1,000 years of our history has taught us to be timid, taught us to be all of this, and we are only 75 years into the recovery. So it will take time. So that's why I'm patient. Just like figuring out technologies takes time, figuring out our own civilizational roots also will take time. It must be a battle, several lifetime worth of battles we have to fight. So.
You said, one minute. You said you have patience, but do we as a nation have time?
Again, I'm an optimist. See, you can say China is advanced, all of that. They're not producing any children anymore. There won't be much China left, right? So one aspect of modernity that is now very visible, that's true even in India. Once somebody becomes wealthy, they stop having children. Absolutely visible everywhere. So, which means that all of these are, it's really a race to who will commit suicide faster right now. Which civilization will commit? Yeah, true, right? Is it going to be Japan? Is it going to be Korea? Korea has 0.7 or 0.8 birth fertility now. Now 2 is the replacement level, right? So that's why I'm saying that this is a direct consequence of materialistic paradigm. We chase only the material, this is what will happen. So that's why I am not, we have time because we have children. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. My question is for the youth of today, specifically when we speak of economic for them, what is the future for them? And I want Zoho case study, if we can actually replicate, if somebody wants to replicate the case study, have an enterprise that has brought in income for the young in the Villupuram district as well, what are the challenges and what are practical steps or suggestions that you could give that an organization that's working towards youth empowerment can practice?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I always, as an engineer, I convert it to a practically actionable algorithm, if you will. What should I do first, right? I go to a small company, a 10, 20 people group, I ask them, what is it that there's one imported product today that you can figure out here with your resources, with your knowledge, with your thing? Stretch yourself a little bit. Obviously, we cannot, with where we are today, we cannot go produce the most advanced fab in the world. We don't have the knowledge, we don't have the resources, capital. But anybody within wherever they are, they can do something within that reach. So that is, in other words, ask the question reverse like this, where what can I produce now? And then the answer for what to do next, it's a ladder climbing comes. So that's how I tell, it's very much an engineer's way of thinking. What is our first step here? The first step is what product can we build here? And that the global markets need. So I evaluate every activity with, we run a massive trade deficit in India. We import a lot more than we export, still. Gap has reduced, but still there is a gap. Particularly it's very easy to ask. So for example, we are buying these chargers, Bluetooth audio, all that. You go buy a Bluetooth speaker that's 800 rupees, 600 rupees, 500 rupees, we are importing it. We can actually make it in rural areas. It's not that hard. And those are the kinds of things that I would start with. Humble products. In fact, I often tell people, prestige is the enemy of profit in capitalism. That means if you are only seeking prestige, you will never make profit. You have to get your hands dirty, you have to go do something like that. And you can get started with Bluetooth and later maybe grow up to challenge a Samsung in 20, 30 years. But you have to get started somewhere. So that's what I say.
Mr. Vembu, is it by sheer providence for India that a 14-year-old from Tanjavur was inspired to become the Shridhar Vembu that we know today? Or are we doing enough to capture the imagination of 14-year-olds today who can be the Mr. Vembus of tomorrow?
I don't like to think of myself so special. No? So I think you are heaping too much praise on me. So I'm just a regular person. My own mind, it's not whatever I said is, as mathematicians would say, obvious. There's nothing I've said so far which is very extraordinarily complicated or difficult to figure out. Once said it, it's trivial, right? It's obvious. So I still have that's why I said, in a parallel world, I'm sitting and proving theorems somewhere. And so that's why I say that this is not, it's there in all of us. I'm not anything special. We just have to light that fire inside. And I'm seeing it, a lot of our engineers, you look at our own company, you look at, for example, the Aratai team now. These engineers have been with us about 10 years now, minimum. This is a relatively young team. They run more lately and very passionate. In fact, during last 2-3 months, they worked every weekend. And on their own, because they know, hey, they'll say, we need to ship this feature, that feature, the market is waiting. That level of passion is there. So the real job of leadership is to kindle that passion and live live the way that other people can be inspired. That's all it is. So, because once that happens, then it's a perpetual motion machine. It runs itself. And it can be done. That's why I ask, if I go to an entrepreneur, I ask them, what is it within your reachability set? And what the reachability set, I use the term. That means from where you are, what can you reach? And think of that product. It could be a Bluetooth speaker. It could be anything. It could be a nail cutter. You know why I talk about nail cutters? Because the metallurgy in it we don't do. And that's why I talk about metallurgy. Then material science. There is something you can do. And maybe with 5 people, 3 people. And from that you can bootstrap yourself. It's always the bootstrapping. That's the first step in the ladder. So that's the most of it. So I think there is a lot of youth that way. Part of it is we are obscured by today this whole financialist era where everything has to be valuation, money, all that. That actually is, it subtracts from our focus. If you're only focused on what is the valuation of what I've produced, then you are not focused on the work itself, the thing itself, but only the valuation. So we have to fight that tendency, but it can be done. Again, I was in Silicon Valley, surrounded by this valuation talk all the time. And all the time, actually, there were, I cannot tell you the number of VCs who have quoted us over the years. I had to fend off, saying, no, we are not interested. Often they would think he's being coy, it's only the money, so they will raise the offer. They'll raise the offer. Because it's like, temptation, right? Once, can't name names. Once they said, well, here is a 20-acre ranch I have. It's a beautiful ranch. It'll all be yours. Take my money.
So I have a question. Can technology help in traditional Indian medicine? And another question is, can distributed ownership of social media companies among the users help in conscious capitalism?
Both actually very good questions. The traditional medicine, we definitely have to put it on a scientific foundation. That how do we measure it? How do we test it? For example, I went for a Nadi Pariksha recently from an Ayurvedic doctor. I was very surprised. This doctor doesn't know me at all. And she looked at my pulse. She said, you have had a long history with asthma, and you also had long history with gut issues. I had IBS. Those things have done some damage to it, but it's recoverable, but you have to be more careful now. And my asthma is gone, but still she could tell me that I've had it before. That Nadi Pariksha, no, how do they do it? We have to understand these, right? And so there is clearly that we have to combine the scientific measurement with this. But there is actually an intrinsic, I told you, a methodology issue here, which is, this is known in physics now, the observer and the observed. What we believe about our health also comes true. This was true for my own. I had developed some eczema, meaning very severe, like my scratching my own hands and all of that. It's bleeding. About a year and a half ago, I was carrying a lot of moisturizer. Then one of the dermatologists, a very good one in Chennai, he prescribed medicine, all the steroids, and he also told me, sir, I don't think your problem is eczema. I think your problem is some mental stress you have, and you have to, once you get rid of it, it will go away. The very next day, it went away. It started. Serious. This is a true story. I told him. He said, yeah, that's what I thought. I'm glad you found this to be true. Consciously de-stress yourself. Consciously, think of something else and go do meditation. Something, it will solve itself. This is not measurable by any scientific instrument. If I tell the story, the traditional materialist scientists will think this is all bullshit. It is not bullshit. It is not bullshit. So that is the philosophical, methodological issue, which is measurement alone cannot do this. Today, the leading physicists hold the opinion that the entire quantum go deeper and deeper, you realize there is some part that's not mathematically modelable, measurable, which is what we call consciousness, right, in our thing. And they are saying now, maybe you have to reach into the Upanishads for answers to this. Actually, leading quantum physics are saying this now. In other words, you go deeper and deeper, you realize this, and doctors know this fact, that your thought process has a very deep impact on your body. So that's known, body-mind connection. The second one, social media, that is a good one. See, it does not cost very much to run Aratai, any of these things. Increasingly, the technology to run, LLM is a different matter, the GPU, all that. We can actually offer it at a very, very low price to the user, whether it's direct payment or whatever it is. UPI is a good example. I always offer this example. Take UPI in India. It's ubiquitous, everywhere there, right? It costs the UPI, the company that maintains the network, the National Payment Corporation of India, they are a customer of ours too. It has about 3,000 crore annual revenue, which you measure in dollars, that may be $400 million, US dollars. Visa and MasterCard each would be about 40 billion US dollars. They're doing the same job. This company is able to get it done with 400 million. They need 40 billion each. So it is, the technology today makes it possible to do it cheaper. But that was also an organizational. See, UPI is a standard, the government established it. So I always tell the government, establish standards for messaging. It's very easy. Enforce interoperability. Then prices will come down, the monopolies will end. And so that's important. So and government should do these things. Just like railway tracks, all of that, the standardization is essential in this area.
Yeah. My name is Shiva Chinnaswamy. One brief question. This regarding your earlier comment about the age of abundance that's going to be unleashed by AI and robotics and all that. Sri Aurobindo has earlier said something to the effect that liberty, equality and fraternity, they are highly inspired ideals and they actually represent the values of Vedas. And communism focused on equality to the detriment of other two and it failed. Capitalism focuses on liberty to the detriment of other two and it's also going to fail. And it is in India a new way you'll find that will merge and put fraternity ahead and take these two together. So my question is, in the age of abundance, capitalism is standing in the way because capitalism has a centralizing effect. And by default, companies and countries that hold these companies like USA are going to weaponize that and restrict access to that. So until we change this paradigm of money, what money itself is, and the whole model of economy, is it even possible to really reach the universal basic income and realize the benefits of abundance? Thank you.
So I actually would be, you look at US today, for all the technology driven valuation, all of that, the US society itself is deeply divided, which is why the political earthquakes keep happening there. It's deeply divided. You can, in fact, I often say Silicon Valley versus Central Valley. Massive difference in terms of incomes, all of that. And then the flyover states, massive difference, right? The coastal prosperity versus the flyover states. So these are not, even within the US, they have not figured out answers to these questions. And again, I would not call it capitalism. If they actually, there is a economic thinker called Matt Stoller. I follow him on X. He says it's actually a simple problem. Prevent monopolies. Google has been declared a monopoly, by the way, recently by a federal court. Microsoft has been declared a monopoly, but no action was taken. Their court finds them monopolies, the government won't do the job. So that, if they take care of it, competition will take care of the rest. It's not actually a serious problem. That's why I said it's a political will, the political economy question rather than a technology question. It is not true that Google or anybody or we will stop inventing if we don't get, for example, if I don't make 200 billion in annual profit, I won't stop inventing. 2 billion is plenty too. So, but it's not a question of allowing me to make 200 billion and take 195 million distributed at UPI. That will never work. Because the people who are doing the distributing will take most of it, which we know, right, in our politics. So, naturally, organically, you have to prevent me from making 200 billion a year, only settle for only 2 billion a year, right? That's possible in our system. It's not difficult. Prevent monopolies. So, it's an engineering problem, as they say.
I think we'll wrap up the next session, or maybe one last question. That's it.
Thank you. Hi, sir. So I want to bring this conversation back to languages because this is a literature fest. Right, so I see that all these AI companies saying that they've almost done all the algorithmic 10x's, but I've studied Advaita Vedanta at Dayanand Ashram, and I'm studying Sanskrit using LLMs, and I realized that it is a generative language. Right, it has these 14 Maheshwara sutras that is used to create the whole language itself. So why are we not using that as a foundation to take the next step? And is this happening in India right now, or can we?
Yeah, actually we are happy to report this is the exact thought in Kerala, in our Kottarakara office, this is being pursued, this idea. And Sanskrit is a very interesting one, right? The 2000 dhatus, the root words, you combine them in endless combination, you can get billions of words from it, right? So every shade of meaning can be captured by combining these, and you will get a rough meaning immediately by looking at that, how it's combined. So this is, in our AI they are being built there, the translation between Indian languages is going through the Sanskrit substrate. Between Tamil and Hindi, or between Gujarati and Bengali, like that, it's going through Sanskrit right now. So we are not yet ready to ship, but we are seeing some promising results. Yeah. Yeah, please, yeah. And we also are producing programming languages now, where you can code in any of the Indian languages and can see it in English, whatever, all that we are doing now. And we are borrowing some ideas from the compounding, combining words idea we are bringing it to programming languages right now. So, yeah, thank you.
On that note, I think we really want to let's give another beautiful round of applause to thank Mr. Shridhar Vembu for it. As a last, just as we finally conclude this, I think there's a lot of takeaway for us in Auroville. For example, we have a birthing center called Morning Star, which is coming up. So those services which AI and all that cannot, I think there's a lot of possibilities. As a young person sitting here asked, what is it? Maybe Auroville should take it up. Auroville, again, Anandi, we have you there if you can just step out. Mother spoke about a system of prosperity here where you do what you like, but your needs will all, not needs in a communal or, but in a very minimalistic way, but whatever are your needs will get taken care of, that is there. And then to also for what Jayanti said, Sri Aurobindo spoke about, you can teach by, he used 3 words, lecture, inspiration and example. So I think more and more of these examples from across the length and breadth of the country will fire the imagination of young people. So once again, thank you so much, Shridhar Vembu Ji, for your time and all that you're doing for India, the world and humanity. Namaste.
We have a humble gift for you, sir, and a very creative gift for you waiting outside, and I don't know how you will carry it with you. Here. A cycle.